Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It's so good to be here. It is Thursday, February 13th. Yes, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, which reminds me, I will have my show tomorrow this time. Usually on Fridays, I have my show at 8 p.m. at night. But because tomorrow's Valentine's Day, Stasha, she's adjusted her work schedule, so she's off tomorrow night. So we're going to go out tomorrow night. So I won't have a show tomorrow night, but I will have the Ramsey Paul show this week only on Friday at 11 a.m. So welcome to the show. I do this typically Monday through Thursday at 11 a.m. But on Friday, I do a show at 8 p.m., but not this Friday. This Friday, I will do it during the day, but I'll do it like the usual Friday show. I'll have a call-in number, be a little bit more casual. So I hope you guys have a great Valentine's Day coming up. It's not really my favorite holiday, but I think women like it. So I'm ready for spring. It's been really cold. We're supposed to get snow next week. I'm ready for spring. Of course, that means I have to mow and maintain the yard, but still, and everything. The heating bills have been expensive. Yeah, it's great to be here. We have a lot to talk about. And if you want to interact with the show, I really do appreciate it. I do not get USAID money, unlike a lot of people. I was the only one, I guess, that never got USAID money. So I appreciate your support. And YouTube has super chats. And I already got a super chat here, so thank you. And I can't read German, but they said that migration is the mother of all problems. That's Windukind. It is. If we're going to have a country is for the people. This was a fundamental misunderstanding of what a nation and a country is. A nation is not something you join, it's something you're born into. That's the root word of the word nation. I think is natio in Latin, which means blood, birth. And you see this in other things. Like if you go to the hospital, neonatal, that it derives from the word nation, birth. And for example, the Cherokee Indians, I can't join the Cherokee Indians. I have to be born into it. That's a nation. And then nations, they can form countries. And nationalism, what I support, is when you have a super majority of people of one nation in the country. And then you have self-determination. Because a nation includes shared blood, it includes customs, language, religion. It doesn't mean it's exactly the same, but that's what a nation is, and I think that's more stable. What's happening in Europe and in America and a lot of places, there's been an effort, I think, organized, and we're seeing it was organized, including by the U.S. government through USAID and the NGOs, to what they call eliminate whiteness. They wanted to get rid of white people and white nations, and one of the strategies was through mass migration. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's been shown to be true. And so they've been flooding our nations with people that are not compatible with us, that don't have our values. And we already saw that again. And hopefully this helps the elections in Germany. But I'm getting so tired of this. And by the way, thank you for your super chat. You can guys help drive the show. And also rants on Rumble. And below is Powerchats, and Stream Elements has a tip feature. But there was yet another terrorist attack by Muslim extremists in Munich. 28 people were injured. It was a car attack by an Afghan, 24. Afghanis don't belong in Germany. They have Afghanistan, and I'm sorry they fucked their country up, but that's where they need to live. They have no duty to be in Germany. Germany does not have an obligation to take these people. They need to be deported. And throughout the West, if the West is survived, there needs to be mass deportations. I don't care if they're a citizen or not, legal or not, that's irrelevant. They do not belong in our countries. And this is an example of what happens. Hopefully Germans are getting tired of this and they have to quit apologizing for World War II. Most of that was propaganda. and they say, no, we have a right to have our own nation. We'll live peacefully with other countries, but we don't have a duty to take in all these people that are going to harm our countries. And even people that don't do terrorist attacks, they're still not compatible with your country. They speak a different language, different religion, they have different values, and I don't want to live among such people. They can live in their homelands. And I think the AfD elections, or the German elections, are coming up, and hopefully the AfD party will do well. I think there's been a switch in that in feeling, so that is good. And I hope Europe will take the United States example, throw off the wokeness, and start to reestablish themselves as independent nations. I'm hard on Europe, just like I'm hard on Britain, because I love Europe and Britain the most. My people originally came from Europe. That's my heritage. And it pains me when I see how horrible Europe has become with girl bosses, the whole LGBTQ thing, how they attack civil liberties like free speech, where they make excuses for Islamic terrorists, but if you complain about it, they throw you in jail. It's horrible. We need a restoration of Europe, and I hope that will happen. And yeah, another breaking news, David Steele just read that RFK Jr. has been confirmed. He has. Tulsi was confirmed, Pete was confirmed, and now Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was confirmed. And it's another victory for Trump. The only one he didn't get through, I think, was Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz has some sexual scandal or something like that, which is ironic because that's most of Washington. But Trump has really been kicking ass and taking names, and he's got the Republicans in line. And I just saw a tweet or a post on X by Z-Man, and I think part of this may be they're really starting to look in corruption in the Washington. And most of the politicians, I think, were lining their pockets, including some Republicans. And I think they're trying to get on Trump's good side now. So I think Doge and what they're doing is really paying dividends. I was just thinking before the show, this administration has been so much different than the first Trump administration, night and day. He came in 2017 after he won the 2016 election. He was immediately under attack. He seemed helpless to defend it. He was trying to be a nice guy, get along with the Democrats. His own FBI was conspiring against him. They had all these NGOs he wasn't aware about funding against him. You had all these hoaxes they were developing with Russia. This time, he's coming in with a whole different attitude. And more importantly, he's coming in with different people. Ivanka and Jared Kushner, they're no longer in the White House. Steve Miller's back. Steve Miller's a really base guy. I like him. But you also have Elon Musk and you have J.D. Vance. You have a lot more smart young people that understand the corruption in Washington, how the blob or the deep state works, and he's able to be very aggressive. I don't think this is happenstance. When he came in, it was immediate. They had a plan. They understood how they're going to defang all the snakes in Washington, D.C. I thought it'd be basically impossible. I was blackpilled. I'm like, there's just no way. It's just so huge. But they really have a good plan about how they're dealing with all their attacks. They don't seem surprised with the attacks. They seem to be able to counter them pretty quickly. They understand where the deep state funding was. A lot of it came through, I had no idea, but the USAID, they understood if they cut that off, they would cut off a lot of the shitlib funding, and that would leave them helpless. And the shitlibs are the woke people. They're squealing like stuck pigs, squealing, because they're used to having a great salary off of your taxpayer dollar. So it's really working. The Democrats, they're just thrashing around. They don't know what to do. They don't have a message. Their whole party's in disarray between, the old school Democrats that used to be about social issues, let's say like healthcare or unions or being anti-war. Well, the new Democrat Party, they're not anti-war, and they're into all this kooky stuff, like a man wearing a sundress is a woman, and men can give birth, and we need to allow sexual perverts into the girls' restrooms. That is not a selling feature. That is not popular with anyone. That is fucked up. But they can't get away from that because their party has been captured by these loonies, these lunatics, as Trump calls them. And I think that's a better word besides left or right or liberals or leftists. They're just lunatics. They're just dumb. If you think a dude wearing a sundress is a woman, you're fucked up. And so that's where they are, though. And they don't know what to do. And it's been glorious to see Trump and his administration kicking ass. It's not even been a month, right? It's February 13th. He was inaugurated January 20th. He's already done more in 3 weeks than most presidents do during their whole term. The guy is 78 years old, and he's got a drive I can't imagine. He's just constantly moving, and his whole administration is. Will they keep up this pace? I hope so. I hope so. But it's been really good to see. And getting through the appointments has been a big win for him. I like to see that's happening. It's good to have RFK Jr. in. And again, RFK Jr., he's not anti-vaccine. He's just saying that we should be prudent. Like before we put out a vaccine or approve these items, we should look at it based on health. Has it really been studied? Not just based on, oh, the pharmaceuticals are fucking paying off some congressman. We got to have better procedures than that, than to be a society that's ruled by corruption, pharmaceuticals, paying these prostitutes we call politicians to do what we do. I mean, we need to do that with foreign policy too. We should cut off all foreign funding of our politicians. That should be illegal. It should be treason. Any, like AIPAC, if they fund any politician, those politicians should go to jail. I'm looking at you, Tom Cotton, because they're on the take with a foreign entity. We need to end that sort of stuff. But it's just not the Israeli lobby. You have the defense contractors paying off people like Lindsey Graham. You have the pharmaceutical company paying off people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. They're taking bribes. As Elon Musk said, these people, a lot of these people, they've never worked a day in their life. They never had a real job in the private sector. They have just a government job their whole life that pays, like maybe 100, 200,000 a year, but then they're worth like $50 million. As Elon Musk said, how the fuck does that happen? What's going on here? Are they just amazing at investments? Are they winning big in Vegas? Are they winning the lottery? No, they're accepting bribes. That's what's happening. And we need to put a stop to that. So I'm really positive what's happening. And this is a really good thing. And we got this... Windukin, thank you again for your kind super chat. Not many terror attacks or gang rapes in Budapest or Warsaw. No, I used to live in Budapest. It's a very safe city. I would walk around at night in the middle of the city at 2 a.m. Had no fear whatsoever. No fear whatsoever. And part of the reason is they didn't allow all these Muslim so-called refugees into Hungary, which is why the United States government indirectly has been trying to overthrow Orban. They did that, we've learned now, through NGOs, meaning your tax dollars went to U.S. Agency of International Development. They sent money to NGOs that work to overthrow countries we don't like. And what countries we like is not really in the American interest. It's these left-wing woke values. Our number one value for the past maybe 20 years, I think it is in the government, has been to eliminate whiteness, to push homosexuality and feminism, and make sure everyone's friendly with Israel. Those are the 3 pillars of our democracy. And if you oppose that, then you're not a democracy. So that's how we vision everything. That's why we consider, we got to defend democracy in Ukraine. And I'm going to get into that. There's a great discussion about events that happened with Trump with Ukraine yesterday. But, we got to defend Zelensky for democracy. Even though Zelensky, he canceled the election. He didn't have an election. He's a dictator. And you can say, it's the wartime. Yeah, Britain didn't cancel the elections in World War II. Neither did the United States. He's a fucking dictator. He arrests people, killed Gonzalo Lira because of his speech. He arrests Christians. Fuck him. He's corrupt. His wife spent $1 million in jewelry off your tax dollars. These guys are corrupt. And I think Trump's had enough of this. But because he promoted the woke values that the neocons wanted, homosexuality, anti-whiteness, anti-Christianity, they're going to fund him. And that is all changing because we have a new sheriff in town and we definitely have new rules. And I guess I'll get into that a little bit. Trump did have a conversation with Putin yesterday. It lasted about 90 minutes. Let me just show you this conversation here. I'm not going to show it all, but just a little bit. This was supposed to be a leftist tweeted this like as a shocker.
Do you expect Ukraine?
Say it, what?
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this?
By the way, isn't it nice to have a president that can actually take questions from the press? Every day he does, it seems like, and he likes it. Whereas Joe Biden, they hid from the press. And when he did have a press conference, you had to submit your questions in advance. Then they had to write down Joe, tell him what to read, and they had to pray that he would read the script. The guy was fucking senile. It was an embarrassment. I mean, looking back on it, what an embarrassment. Worst president in history just because he was an invalid, but we had him in there. What a joke.
This peace process.
It's an interesting question. I think they have.
Should Ukraine be part of the peace process? And Trump's like, oh, that's an interesting question. Never even thought of that because they're just a puppet. They're kind of irrelevant.
To make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace.
We will continue to be
I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
So Trump is insistent that Ukraine needs to make peace. And I wrote on my Substack today about little the history of the Ukrainian war. And speaking of which, I guess it's a good time to kind of put a plug for that in. Go ahead. I mean, subscribe to my Substack if even if you don't want to get the membership. I encourage you to get the membership because you get the roundtables every Tuesday and the exclusive material on Fridays, and you help support me. But even if you just want to sign up just to get my daily updates, I give them for free. And I wrote about this, what happened in Ukraine over the past 3 years. And the war didn't really start in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. It started in 2014. And what happened in 2014, the Ukrainians, they had a democratically elected president who was on good relations with Russia. And that made the neocons upset because the neocons, again, they have this vision, or they did have the vision of basically a one world government where they run everything, maybe out of Jerusalem or something. And they had the idea that we would eliminate whiteness, try to breed whites out of existence, make sure there's no white nations that could ever threaten them again, attack and eliminate Christianity, push homosexuality everywhere, and feminism, girl bosses. That was, and censor everything, make sure we censor speech. That was their game plan. And they aggressively tried to implement that across the world. But they ran into some issues because not all countries were on board with that, notably Russia and to a lesser degree China and Iran. And just coincidentally, they became our enemies. So they had in their idea that a key thing to help implement their vision was to overthrow Russia and Putin. They wanted to overthrow Russia and break it up into smaller pieces. That was their goal. And they thought it'd be fairly easy to do so because they believed their own propaganda. And they always said this, the neocons, they always had a phrase, Russia's just a gas station masquerading as a gas station with nukes masquerading as a country. What they meant by that is, except for if it wasn't for their nuclear weapons, they wouldn't be a viable country, and all they do is sell gas. They don't have any other products. Which is ironic because actually now Russia is extremely self-efficient. They have a lot of food, minerals, a lot of production. They become stronger since we put sanctions on them. But their idea was they're a very weak country and we just had to put pressure on them and they would topple. And so what they were trying to do is to topple countries that were friendly with Russia. And so in 2014, under the Obama administration, Victoria Nuland helped to head it up. But, it was a whole team of what we would call the deep state or the blob. And it went through these NGOs to overthrow the elected president of Ukraine because we didn't like him. And Obama wasn't so much behind it. He had kind of checked out. He just sat around, watched sports on ESPN, basketball. But the deep state ran everything, just like it ran it under Biden. And there's a connection there, by the way. So that happened in 2014. We put in our puppet that was more about, let's be opposed to Christianity, pro-homosexual, all that shit, anti-Russia. And then the ethnic Russians started to be attacked. And most of the ethnic Russians in Ukraine live in the east in what's called the Donbass. So that sparked a civil war that lasted for really about 7 years, killed thousands of people. And it, again, as Putin said, if Trump had been president in 2020, except for that curious election, they would have not invaded Ukraine because they thought they could work with Trump and have a reasonable dialogue, and Trump would respect Russia's right to exist. Whereas under Biden, and again, I use Biden, he's a proxy figure. He's not, Biden was senile, but he was officially president. But then the same people that were running the show under Obama, and again, even Obama, even though he wasn't senile, he just didn't give a fuck anymore. He was just watching basketball all day. And so his little neocon staff was meddling in all these countries. And then once Trump lost the election in 2020 and Biden came in, the same people showed up, and Putin understood there's no reasoning with these people. So the invasion happened. And it's been going on now, for 3 years, the war's been going on. And within a month of the war, people forget this. Remember, Russia had troops around Kiev. And they wanted a negotiated settlement. And they did meet in Istanbul with Ukrainians. They hammered out a peace deal and they were ready to ratify it. And then Anthony Blinken, that piece of shit son of a bitch, former Secretary of State that should be on trial. I hope we send him to Russia for crimes against humanity. Blinken and Victoria Nuland, they have blood of like 2 million men on their hands. Fuck them. But they said, no, we're not going to allow Ukraine to have a peace deal with Russia. And they sent that our little bitch from the UK, Boris Johnson, over there to scuttle the deal because we wanted to destroy Russia. And if we fought Russia and we funded Ukraine, put sanctions on Russia, Russia would crumble. And so USAID, they funded all this propaganda, as we now know, trying to convince everyone that the war was popular in the United States. It never was, but they're trying to gaslight everyone it was popular. All across America, you see Ukrainian flags. I'm like, really? I don't see them. But they kept saying that because they thought they'd make it real. Then you had all these celebrities go over to Kiev and shake the hands of Zelensky. You think they did that because they love Zelensky? No, dear viewer, that's not why they went. They were given millions of dollars of your tax money to go over there and shake his hand because they think you Americans are stupid. And if you see someone like Brad Pitt or Sean Penn go over there and shake their hands, you'll say, oh, I must support the war because my favorite celebrity supports it. Even though they're dumb shits that are just prostitutes doing it for money. But that's what they did. And so then the war dragged on. We scuttled the peace deal. The war has dragged on for 3 years. And now Trump, he wants out of it because as Trump says, we have spent more than people have realized. And I agree with him. He says it's close to $500 billion now. It's over $475 billion. And what the hell's happened? I mean, what did we get out of it? Just a lot of death. That's it. And a lot of people got rich though. That's the thing. Because there was a report yesterday, Tucker Carlson reported, half the weapons that we funded for Ukraine, Ukraine would get them and they would turn around and sell them on the black market to like Mexican cartels. Extreme corruption that I know we've had corruption in our government with the USAID and others. Extreme over there. There's a corrupt society. So there's a lot of corruption there. Who knows where the money went? And that's what kind of spurred this all on with Trump, because they're like, okay, what have you done with our money? And when someone asks you that, that's not a good sign. It's like that scene in The Godfather when Michael Corleone came out to Las Vegas and met Mo Green and said, hey, is my credit good to buy you out? Because, You're not making money here. Maybe we can do better. And Trump, you notice he started with that angle. Like, okay, Ukraine, we've been giving you money, endless amount of money. Half of it has probably been spent on fraud, enriching the politicians like Zelensky, selling money, selling weapons to the drug cartels. We need an accounting of the money. And they can't give an accounting of the money because it's all been fraudulent. So Trump said, well, okay, then we want to be reimbursed with your rare earth minerals. Remember that? But the problem with that, that's in eastern Ukraine that's controlled by Russia. And Zelensky refused to sign that. So how Trump is setting this up is I don't really think Trump cares. And we really shouldn't. Ukraine's not our business. And Europe, if you guys want to fight Ukraine against Russia, go for it. I don't think you can because you're just run by a bunch of girl bosses and you're very weak. But hey, go for it. That's up to you. It's not up to us to fight your wars or fund your wars. And Trump is looking for a way to get a settlement. And he talked to Putin yesterday, and they talked how eventually they're going to meet in Moscow or maybe Washington or Saudi Arabia. And both teams right now are starting to have discussions trying to hammer out a deal. And you notice Zelensky's not part of the conversations because he's not really relevant. Zelensky won't be part of the deal signing because, as Trump said, Zelensky's not very popular. He's got low ratings, as Trump said. I love how he says that, low ratings, like it's a television program. Like when he was on The Apprentice, I had high ratings, super high ratings. Zelensky, he's got low ratings. How are you going to sell advertising with low rating show? So, yeah, his popularity is low. He's a dictator. He canceled the elections. Trump's going to insist that Ukraine have elections again. Zelensky will lose. I assume that Zelensky, he's going to end up killed or he's going to flee the country with his millions. I used to think he'd come like to Palm Springs, but I don't think he's coming to America with Trump. He'll probably run off to Israel because he's Jewish and take his money there. That's the most likely scenario. But we will see. We will see what happens there. But he won't be signing the deal with Russia. I guarantee that. So how it's going to work is Trump, he doesn't give a shit about what the Europeans think or the girl bosses or what Zelensky thinks. He's going to hammer out a deal with Russia, which will probably be something equivalent to the deal that happened back in, I think it was March of 2022. So the war started in February in 2022. Within a month, they had a peace treaty that bloodthirsty Blinken scuttled. If not for that, the war, millions of lives would have been saved. But we had to topple Russia because those are our values. But the problem is Russia didn't fall. In fact, they're winning the war. It's become a war of attrition. That's the type of war Russia tends to fight. They've just been grinding out Ukraine. And there's not much more that can happen. There's no way to win the war unless the United States actually sent troops. And we're not doing that. There's no way, no how. And the Europeans aren't. They're too big of pussies. They're not going to do that. And a bunch of girls running around. They don't have an army to do that. So the only thing we can do is fund Ukraine. But pretty much Ukraine's lost a generation of men. It's a tragedy. They've been butchered. They're running out of men. And you need young men to fight. And they're running out of young men to fight. That's just the way it is. Russia has a lot more. Russia has lost a lot of young men, but they have a lot more. They have a bigger population. Then you have Ukraine. They're running out of young men. Europe, bunch of pussies. They can't fight anymore. They're all has-beens from, 100 years ago, they were a powerful continent. And I hope they can be powerful now in the future. But right now, you have some girl boss and men running around in dresses. It's pathetic. They can't fight. And most of them wouldn't fight. Why should they? They don't even like their governments. In fact, their governments hate them. Their governments just want to import Islam into their countries and throw them in jail if they object. So fuck you. Why should I fight for that? So Europe can't fight. So Trump understands this. They're going to go to back, I think, the Istanbul Agreement. There's some variation of that. Well, Russia will keep the eastern provinces, Donbass, that's part of Russia territory. They'll keep Crimea, that's properly Russia. And there'll be some security guarantees. They've already said there's no way, and Trump has already made it clear, his administration, Ukraine is not getting in NATO. That's not happening. And they're going to have to give up some territory. That's just realistic. And I think the way that this is going to work out, and I think the Russians understand this too, is, and Trump's going to bring back a deal. He's going to say, okay, well, first of all, Ukraine, because Russia won't deal with Zelensky. They consider him illegitimate, and he is illegitimate. Again, he wasn't elected anymore. He's a dictator. Trump's going to say, okay, well, Ukraine, first of all, you got to have an election. So that gets rid of Zelensky. We'll get a new guy in. And then I'll just say, this is it. We're going to wrap this up. We spent $500 billion on this bullshit. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't want to do this war. But the Obama administration, Victoria Nuland, that fat hog, and that son of a bitch, Blinken, got us into this bloody war. And I'm trying to clean up the mess. But so here's the two options. You can accept the peace deal I worked with Russia to do. Okay, we can accept that. You may not like it totally, but you keep most of your country and we'll have peace. Or you could say, no, we're not going to do that. And I'll just say, well, I tried, but we're not going to, we're cutting out waste. We don't have endless amount of money. It's not in our interest to bankrupt our country for Europe. Europe, you guys need to pay for it if it's such a big issue for you. We're out of it. And if you're out of it, well, good luck to you. You guys can do what you want. And of course, Europe can't do anything. Russia will easily win very quick at that way. So from Europe's point of view and Ukraine's point of view, they either can accept whatever Trump and Putin come up with, or they can refuse. And I don't think Trump really cares, honestly. I think he had to do something to show, he's kind of hinted at this, he's had to make a show of this, that he's trying to resolve it. But either way, Americans, I believe, are going to be out of this pretty soon. One way or the other, we're not going to fund this mess anymore. So you can either have a negotiated settlement, or we will just say, forget it, you guys do what you want, and you guys will probably lose everything. So it's your choice. And that's the way it's going to be presented. And it's not really negotiations. This is how it will be. And I think Trump has pretty insisted upon that. J.D. Vance kind of gave a come to Jesus moment for Europe. No pun intended, because it seems like a bunch of Islamic attacks now, but he's came to Europe and he talked really frank about Europe, how things are going to run now. And there's a new sheriff in town, and we're not going to be a sucker anymore. That's why the whole rare earth mineral thing Trump brought up, he was just saying he's unhappy with how our money's been pissed away, and we want compensation for it. So the situation, I think, will be resolved in Ukraine fairly soon. I hope. It's a bloody war. It needs to end. And I don't think Trump is just all about money. I do think he's sincere when he thinks this is horrible, all these people that are dying. But there's also financial problems with it. So I think it's so the neocons and the woke people that are pro-war, they're screaming. But I think this is a pretty good scenario that we see right now. And let me just get I think I have a clip we'll show in this. Get my producer to bring this up here. Well, let's go over the phone call that happened yesterday with Putin and Trump.
With Russian President Putin, and some details come directly from the president. He has just put out on his Truth Social, and so it's everywhere now, that they discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, and the dollar. He also revealed the two.
See, and this is a thing that, again, the previous administration, they had no vision. Trump, you could love him or hate him or in between, but Trump has a vision. The Democrats have no vision whatsoever. Besides abortion and paying men to dress up like women and put them in schools teaching anal sex. That's their vision. But Trump has a vision for America that's pretty big, and the world even. And Ukraine, that's not all of his vision. In fact, it's a nuisance to him. The Project Ukraine, he wants to get out of. And when he talked to Russia, not all of the conversation was about Ukraine. There was a lot of other subjects. It's kind of interesting. Most of the media missed that. He said, yeah, we talked about Ukraine, about AI, the dollar, the Middle East, and he just went down the line. And obviously, they just picked up the Ukraine part. But I think Trump there's some, you got to read into this. He's thinking more than just Ukraine. He wants to see how to set up the world between China, Russia, and the United States, how things need to be divvied up. And he has got a big vision. I really think he sees, okay, we have multiple powers, and we in the United States, we have our influence, which potentially includes taking Canada and Greenland. North America is ours. Russia, you can do what you want in your region of the world. In China, what you want to do in your region is your bit. I think that's how he sees it. And he wants to try to do everything to protect American interests. That's why he brought up the dollar and his whole idea of the Middle East, which I don't agree with him on, especially because I think he's very obviously influenced by the Israeli lobby. But that's what Trump is looking at. He's got a bigger vision than just Ukraine. And I don't think Trump just wants a Ukrainian peace deal, meaning they do a ceasefire or whatever. I think he wants more of a understanding in general with Russia that's bigger than Ukraine. When it could come about, he could drop some sanctions. Trump, I wouldn't be surprised as part of the negotiations is like, okay, well, Russia will give you a good deal, but I mentioned those rare earth minerals that Zelensky owes us because they've been stealing from us, so we're going to take them. That's collateral. Whether Zelensky signs the agreement or not, we don't give a shit. We consider those rare earth materials our property at this point because those bozos have embezzled our money. So that's our property. And you happen to have our property now because you took it over from Ukraine, but that's really still ours. So we're able to meet with you and maybe reduce some sanctions and bring you back into the fold, and you could have the Donbass, but we want those rare earth minerals to compensate us for all this money we pissed away on this stupid war. And I watch that happening because we know asking Zelensky to give us those rare earth minerals when Zelensky doesn't take, just think about this logically. The Secretary of Defense said that he told Europe because they're not getting back those territories. That's just not realistic. And then Trump is saying, we want those rare earth minerals, which happen to be in those territories that his Department of Defense has said they're not going to get back. So how can Ukraine give us those rare earth materials when they don't control that land anymore? And they never will, according to the president. Well, they say that's a little mystery. And the mystery solved when Trump is basically, from a negotiating point of view, from a business point of view, saying we need to get paid back. Because Trump, I think one of his big priorities now is to try to fix the accounting in the United States. We've gone out of control, huge deficit, everything's a mess domestically, but part of this has been internationally too. And he's always big on other countries paying their fair share and not taking advantage of America. And so his point of view, you may love it or hate it, is like, okay, Ukraine, they weaseled all that money from us. We want, they're not paying back, then we're gonna repo. We're gonna repo the rare earth minerals. And I have one here. I had a Dylan sent me this a while ago. He sent me this big old block of copper. It's really cool. He's on our Gumroad. But see, copper's not really rare earth, but minerals like that, we definitely want them back. So, that is going to happen. All right, let's continue here.
You agreed to visit each other's countries. He said, I had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I just read what he said they talked about. We both reflected on the great history of our nations and the fact that we fought so successfully together in World War II, remembering that Russia lost tens of millions of people, as we likewise lost so many. We each talked about the strengths of our respective nations and the great benefit that we will someday have in working together.
Yeah, and this is good. I mean, there's no reason Russia should be our enemy. There's really no reason there should be. and I'm not saying we should be Russia, but this idea, the left and the right does this too. They're sometimes always stuck in history. And the left always thinks everyone that they don't like is mustache man and everything. So when Putin invaded Ukraine, that's just like Hitler invading Poland or something bullshit like that. And if we give in, that's appeasement, just like Chamberlain. And just like Hitler, Putin, if we give in to him, he's going to take over all the Europe, and then he's going to take over the world and kill everyone that doesn't have blue eyes, or some bizarre thing like that. When that wasn't even the case with Hitler. But that's the propaganda they got themselves all worked up in a tizzy about, and it's nothing to do with that. So in a good government, we're like, why are we fighting? You have your territorial issues. Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union. There's a lot of Russians there. It used to be in some ways the heart of Russia. You could debate it. It's not really our concern. Just like what happens in North America is not Russia's concern. And I think just because, again, the neocons didn't like Russia because they don't do gay pride marches in Moscow or teach their little boys if they pick up a doll, they need to be castrated like we used to do in the United States. Trump doesn't care about that. And I think Russia we could get along with them. And I think that would be better for both countries in the world. That's Russia's point of view. Now, the question is, why didn't Biden, over these past 4 years, at least have a dialogue with Putin? You always want to talk to people, see if you can work something out. Well, obviously, Biden couldn't because he was senile. But his staff, they just hated Russia for a lot of reasons.
First, as we both agreed, so this is Trump posting about his recent call just moments ago with Putin. He said, but first, as we both agreed, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia and Ukraine. President Putin even used my very strong campaign motto of...
This is what's really a bizarre world for my age, because I'm old now, so I can remember the old days when the left in America used to be anti-war. It's really weird now. So Trump is working for peace, and what we call the left now has really changed. They're anti-peace. It's bizarre.
Common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We also have agreed to our respective terms, starting negotiations immediately. And we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, something which I will be doing right now.
So he talked to Putin for 90 minutes. Then he called Zelensky for 10 minutes and told Zelensky the score. Unless Zelensky is very stupid, he probably should pack his bags. He probably should pack his bags and head off to Tel Aviv because his days are numbered.
So this is playing out contemporaneously as we're here live on Outnumbered. I have asked Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Director of CIA John Radcliffe, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Ambassador and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations, which I feel strongly about will be successful. Millions of people have died in a war that would have not happened if I were president.
Oh, by the way, Putin confirmed that. Putin said, yeah, we wouldn't have invaded if Trump was president. So the left, they really had a Pyrrhic victory doing their shenanigans in 2020. Trump would be president now. They could have continued to basically control Trump. But because they screwed him over, tried to deplatform him, he just came back with a vengeance. And it's really good, better for us this happened. So why I didn't really care about the little shenanigans the Democrats did in 2020. In the long run, it worked out better for us.
But it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost, President Trump writes. I want to thank President Putin for his time and effort with respect to this call and for the release yesterday of Mark Fogel, a wonderful man that I personally greeted last night at the White House. I believe this effort will lead to a successful conclusion, hopefully soon. The President of the United States. Charles.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Hands-on, getting things done. It's hard to put it into words. You know, I actually was getting goosebumps as you read that because of what we've already seen. And just in the last few weeks, what we've already seen, including getting Mark Vogel home. And
Yeah, it's again, it makes the contrast between Biden and Trump is just amazing. It's like, what the hell was Biden doing for 4 years, really? And I know we joke about him sleeping and eating ice cream, but that was about it. He was pathetic. Trump is coming in, and again, Trump's not like 58; he's 78, and he's just so energetic, and he's getting stuff done. And yeah,
it just makes you feel pretty confident that this conflict will be resolved much sooner than anyone had anticipated. And to President Trump's point, it did not start under his watch and probably would not have started on his watch.
You know, it is a promise that we now know on July 13th, the conversations that he was having with Mark Vogel's now 95-year-old mother.
Yeah.
And he promised her he would bring Mark Vogel home. And he talks about promises made, promises kept, and we think, okay, campaign, that has to do with all of America. But it can be personal, too. You've been there with a front row seat when it gets personal, Kaylee.
Yes, and that was a very personal story he shared, and it was very interesting and fascinating to hear. And
by the way, this is what someone that is effective at leadership can do, because Trump understands how to negotiate. He understands deals. He understands, Biden, well, no way we can get the American home. What are we supposed to do? There's nothing we could do. Whereas Trump just, talked to Putin and said, hey, I think we could have great conversations here with Putin. But, and we don't know this, but I bet he says something, as a sign of goodwill, why don't you let Mark go? And then let's have some good conversations. And Putin's like, oh, okay. See, that's all it took. That's all it took. And Biden never even thought of that. Or didn't give a shit, probably, because Mark isn't black and a female. So, yeah, it was amazing.
I think, look, reading that tweet, that Truth Social, as you did, I was just thinking back about foreign policy over the last decade and a half. And you think about President Obama, and you think about Putin and his invasion of Crimea that happened. And, Obama responded with minor sanctions. Then Trump comes in, and it's stability for 4 years. There's no Russia annexing X, Y, or Z. And then you bring in Biden, and then you get a war in Ukraine. And then Trump, here we are, just over 3 weeks' time. Mark Vogel's released. Then there's this conversation, and you're talking about winding down the war in Ukraine. If President Trump, and look, there's a lot of ifs, we don't know what will happen. If he manages to wind down the war in Ukraine, get a status quo in the Middle East where Iran is on its heels, where you get a Saudi peace deal, this is legacy-defining presidential moves on the foreign policy stage that would put you in the realm of Ronald Reagan. Again, a lot to be played out. We're only 3 weeks in, but these are very encouraging signs 3 weeks in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's, and again, I think the war will end because Trump, he doesn't really, he sees this as just a waste of money. And what's the point? I mean, what do we care who controls the Donbass, really? The people of the Donbass, by the way, voted that they wanted to be part of Russia. I think, let's honor that. But anyway, it's none of our business. And I think he's going to give that discussion. They're giving that message to Europe. Like, okay, we're going to get a deal with Putin. We're going to end this nonsense. If you don't want to go along with the deal, whatever. We tried. We're going to do our thing. You guys have fun with it. And you know what's going to happen because you guys are weak, right? You're a bunch of pussies. Russia will easily take the whole enchilada, so to speak. If we can use a Mexican terminology, they could take it all. You get our deal, you get to keep something. It's up to you. I don't really give a shit one way or the other. I think that's going to be Trump's negotiating policy with Europe and not so much Zelensky. Zelensky's an afterthought now. You can really read between lines. Trump doesn't even think about Zelensky. It's like that guy's already gone in his mind. It really is. And again, if I was Zelensky, I'd be really worried because he's not even angry with Zelensky. It's like, okay, this is dead man walking. There's going to be a new guy in. I see it that way. I don't know if other people do, but there's some issues there. Okay, I got another super chats today. Good super chats today. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. And as a reminder, Friday tomorrow, I will have the show at the same time, 11 a.m. Usually on Fridays, I have the show in Friday evening, but because it's Valentine's Day, Sasha and I are going to go out to dinner. And because she usually works evenings, but she's taken off early. So, okay, I said I'll reschedule the show to this time slot. So tomorrow, Valentine's Day, we will have the Ramsey Paul show at 11 a.m. Central. But that's just a one-time thing. Then we'll go back to Friday evenings. Because I know a lot of people, they like to watch the show live and they work. So I decided one day a week we'll do it on Friday evenings. And I announced yesterday, but I'm really excited. Next Wednesday, I'm starting a show with the famous Z-Man, a guy I read every day. I look forward to every Friday because he has his podcast. I love to listen to his podcast. A lot of times on Fridays, I drive back to Fayetteville and I listen to his podcast in the car. So I'm looking forward to that. He's a great guy. I look forward to him. So that'd be Wednesday nights. And then Tuesdays, we have a roundtable. A lot of fun if you're a Substack subscriber. And then Sasha and I, we do night owls at various times. So Lucas T, thank you. Generous super chat. Democrats' only option is for the corrupt judges to delay Trump's agenda to buy time as they block Trump's travel orders and turn one to waste it knowing it was a legal order. Will they succeed? I don't think so. I was kind of blackpilled yesterday about that judge that said, no, you can't look at your Treasury Department. But that was already, let me just show you this guy here. I think I have this here. And thank you for that question. Let me jump to that. There was let me see if I have more of a. So we got good news about the legal aspect. And let me show you here. Because this was that's always a problem. You get these radical judges try to stop the will of the people.
So clarifying that the government can limit access to federal funds on the basis of the applicable authorizing statutes, regulations, and terms. Essentially, yes, the government can do so in complying with regulations, and then that the previous order does not bar both the president and much of the federal government from exercising their own lawful authorities to withhold funding without the prior approval of the district court, meaning, again, they can disperse the monies that they were allocated within the law, within the confines of the law, and that the government does not have to seek preclearance from the courts on terminating funding as long as they have the authority to do it as governed by the applicable statutory, regulatory, or grant terms. So essentially, the court is confirming what the Trump administration has maintained and what common sense can project, which is that within the confines of regulatory and normal authority, of course, you can do what you want with your own money, and you don't need a court's approval to do so.
Yep.
So this was a big victory. Remember yesterday, there was that judge. It was an Obama judge. And the Obama judge said that Trump can't look at his treasury data, look at fraud and all this. And because it turns out the judge's wife was a parasite getting money from USAID. Like, who wasn't? I don't know you, dear viewers, were you getting USAID money? I wasn't. Seems like everyone in Washington was sucking off the taxpayer. I didn't get any of it. But his dear wife was getting money. And so he made this ruling, and his ruling was overturned already. So I'm a lot more optimistic, and I think they probably understood that, because I really think they came in with a game plan. They understood that there would be pushback legally, and they seem to be doing this well. Pam Hyde, Durant, thank you. What do you think the new strategy for Democrats will be? Climate change, immigration, and the gay stuff seems to be out of fashion, and I don't think they can resurrect it. Well, I think the Democrats, the Republicans went through something similar. They went through, after the Bush era, and you had like Mitt Romney, it was, what does it really mean to be Republican? And then you had, in 2016, or 15, 16, you had the emergence of Trump. And if I have to say, you had the emergence of the alternative right. the original alt-right before it became co-opted into some weirdo Nazi thing. It was the policies we're seeing now implemented that J.D. Vance is espousing, Elon Musk and Donald Trump. They're basically the old alt-right positions. Again, the original alt-right, not what it morphed into some sort of weird Nazi cosplay, right? So, I was a fan of the old right, alt-right, but then when it went into the Nazi stuff, I said, yeah, I'm out of this. It's just going to end up in disaster. And everyone like, you cock, boomer cock. And guess what? Ended up in disaster. And it's funny, all these people that called me cocks, they are now like themselves leftist or communist. It's kind of funny. But I was right. So there was a change in our group of like, okay, what's the Republicans going to be? Are we just going to be Democrat light? Are we going to be about just endless wars and maybe corporate tax cut? That's it. That's all we're about. Or are we something different? And Trump represented that difference. And there was a battle because you remember the establishment of the the Republican Party. They were like, no way in hell is Trump going to have a place in this party. Remember that? And look where they are right now. They've all bent the knee, or they're excluded. And now the Republican Party is Trump. It is J.D. Vance. It is 100% changed from where it was. It's really amazing. It used to be a party of John Bolton, Cheney, Bush, that weirdo that was being paid by USAID too. David French, remember that conservative? All of that. He would always parade around his adopted black daughter as some sort of virtue signal. I feel sorry for her. They just all been flushed. And so there was a change, and the Republican Party reinvented itself and is more popular than ever. Even though they were told, oh, if you do that, you're going to lose all the votes. You won't be popular. You can't do that. You can't be against immigration. And look what's happened. It's really amazing. The Democrats now, they're going to have to go through the same type of struggle. There's a couple of factions in the Democratic Party. Well, there's multiple factions. But if you can simplify it, you have the old school Democrats that I can remember from years ago. I would say even like the Bernie Sanders type. I know he's more of a socialist, but the Democrats, they were always more kind of socialist. Let's have free health care. Let's defund the military and give it to schools, that type of stuff. And that was kind of what they were about. Now you could debate that good or bad, but that's kind of their prime message. And that resonated with a lot of people. I think mistakenly with a lot of people, but it did resonate. Whereas around the Obama years, they really got taken over by this real radical lunatic fringe that the Democrat Party became not about, hey, we're a party for everyone. We don't care if you're black or if you're Asian, white or purple. Now it's, no, if you're white, you have a problem. You have a whiteness problem. And so they became very anti-white. They became very strange in their woke policies about men that pretend to be women or women, pronouns, just crazy shit, right? And you see the policies in California where they cut off water so they can't fight forest fires. They started to push official racism against white people or anti-white policies in hiring. So you had DEI and everything started to crumble. So their positions are very unpopular with a lot of mainstream normal people Democrats. Yeah, they're popular now with blue-haired girls on the college campus that are screaming about rape or something, but normal people, they've really lost the plot. So the Democrats are going to go through their same struggle like the Republicans did. And I don't know who's going to win. I hope the woke side wins because that make it easier for the Republicans and Trump. But they could try to pivot to like a Josh Shapiro type or someone that pretends to be more normal, not a radical fringe lunatic. We will see. I don't know, but they are in a mess right now. I showed you some of those clips from the Democratic National Convention, and they all got confused because of their DEI and equity, gender balancing of votes, and no one understood it. It looked like just a Saturday Night Live skit, but it was real. And then they have these loud black women screeching about reparations. So they just have, then you have some homosexual in a dress screaming at people. It's not really appealing to Americans. But how do they purge that faction? That can be tough because that faction is very vocal. Basically, the Trump was able to purge the neocon faction out of the Republican Party. I mean, I never thought it'd be possible, but all those David French type characters, they're on the outside now. I mean, they may still call themselves Republicans, but they're basically, I don't know what they are. So they're purged out. So will the Democrats be able to purge out their loons? I don't know, because they got so caught up in all that. I'm skeptical they can, but you never know. Trump was able to do it, so maybe they would be able to do it. Okay, but thank you for your rant, and that was on Rumble. I appreciate your rants. That was good. All right. Okay, let's see more foreign stuff. Well, let's go more domestic. We've been an hour on foreign stuff. So I think the big news foreign was Russia and Ukraine. And I think J.D. Vance and the team are in Munich today. They're going to be meeting with some European leaders. And it's a new sheriff. We're not over there to listen to the girl boss opinion. We're there to set, okay, this is how it's going to be. We're not here to hear your squealing or crying. This is how it's going to be, because we're going to straighten this up. All right, we talked about the good news about the Trump. He's able to cut the funding, so the Doge is good to go. And another thing that we need to look at, let me just show you this, is some of the stuff and the corruption we've seen. And I like Trump. He's on the offensive. This is on his Truth Social, but it's like Twitter or X. Doge, why was Political paid millions of dollars for nothing buying the press? Pay back the money to the taxpayers. How much have the failing? I love Trump because he does his own tweets, or I don't know what you call it on Truth Social, but he writes it. You know it because it's just like he's got this, a lot of times older boomers, they have like weird punctuation and random capitalization. So how much does the failing, and he capitalized for some reason, failing, New York Times paid? Is this money that is keeping it open? They are buying the press. Then he wrote, Doge, looks like the radical left Reuters was paid $9 million by the Department of Defense to study large-scale social deception. Give the money back now. So, yeah, what happened there is a couple of things. Political, they weren't given the money directly from the Treasury. It went through USAID that went to NGOs, and those NGOs, they bought subscriptions. Like, I guess, I didn't know. I guess in like on some of these news sites, you can become a subscriber. It's kind of like you guys can subscribe to me on Substack. So it'd be like if I said, no, the government, they didn't give me a dime of money. I don't know what you're talking about. That's fake news. Just that NGO. I did have this NGO the other day. Yeah, it was really cool. They just signed up for 100,000 subscriptions for me on Substack. Hey. And that NGO is paid by USAID, which was paid by the Treasury, but I'm not funded by the taxpayer. That's the game Political New York Times has played. And Trump is saying, yeah, you need to give back our money then. And so Trump's doing this. You notice the theme. He's telling Zelensky, yeah, you pissed away our money. You can't account for it. If they ever try to audit or look into the books at Ukraine, that'd be hilarious. So he's saying, yeah, well, we're going to repo your rare earth minerals. And now he's talking to the New York Times, the political, and said, yeah, you got to give us a refund here. You got to give us a refund. And it is pretty crazy. And yeah, one of the things they did was to fund this. Yeah, here it is. I had it down in my links. I do prep, but sometimes my links get a little buried. So let's take a look at this. This is a social deception. It's like a WTF moment. So this is your US tax dollars. Reuters, which is supposed to be a free media, but it was actually being funded by the US government. And again, the government was using it to attack people like us, our ideas. It was fund millions of dollars. And one of the projects they had was large-scale social deception. That's what it literally said on the purchase order. And here it is. This is a purchase order that USAID, the Department of Defense, I'm sorry, this wasn't USAID. This is Department of Defense. They paid Reuters. Here it is. Thomson Reuters Special Services, LLC. That's that corporation, limited liability corporation. And they paid the money for, here it is. It's for the COVID-19 spending. So for some reason, remember the whole COVID-19 hoax, the Department of Defense gave money to Reuters to do active social engineering defense and social deception, large-scale social deception. They wrote it out. They didn't even hide it. So basically, what happened here, I think, just by looking at this, the Department of Defense spent money to give to Reuters, a supposedly independent news organization, yeah, right, to run social deception on you guys concerning COVID-19. So instead of a free independent media reporting honestly, like, hey, where did COVID-19 come from? How dangerous really is it? Does the vaccine really work? You would think the media would have been interested in that sort of thing. But no, dear viewer, no, they weren't interested. And now we know why, because they were being paid by the government to engage in social deception. And that's what we call in the Ozarks here. We're not as sophisticated. We call that lying. So the Department of Defense paid Reuters to lie, to deceive you about COVID-19, which then organizations like YouTube would strike me. In fact, I got more strikes. I think all my strikes have been just based on that, medical misinformation. I'm supposed to be so controversial, but the thing YouTube really got mad about is when I just had, I would do a story from doctors and research that kind of contradicted the narrative. Well, where'd the narrative come from? It came from these people that were trying to do social engineering. Your tax dollars went to Reuters. Instead of doing actually honest reporting, they were paid to lie to the public. And then based on those lies, social media could justify their censorship. That's how the little game worked. And now we're seeing that. So, we need our money back, and we need that is just crazy. Well, the stuff that is happening there. So yeah, you paid your tax dollars to try to deceive you. Social deception. All right. Let's look at some more craziness of the spending that's happened. Did I just hear the White House press briefing question correctly? 2.7 trillion in improper Medicare and Medicaid payments to people overseas who weren't entitled to the benefit. This cannot be real. The entire national debt is 36 trillion, and you're telling me you sent 2.7 trillion to people overseas. So I always knew I suspected there was a lot of fraud and waste in the government. I think kind of people knew that. but I don't think we understood I didn't understand how huge it was. I thought, because that was my criticism of Doge. And when Trump, he met with Elon Musk and he said he was going to start a Department of Government Efficiency to get rid of waste. I thought, okay, this is going to be sort of like the Grace Commission under Reagan, where they're going to look at ways to save money. And yeah, they'll find some stupid, like $100,000 wasted on studying three-legged lesbians in Brazil or something. You always get that type of thing. I think in the Reagan administration, they found some toilet seat that they paid like $100 for, which was a lot of money back then. Just stupid stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, we should get rid of that, but it's kind of nickel diming type stuff. It's not huge. But now we're talking huge money of fraud that they're uncovering, because there doesn't seem to have been any really controls. So if you're just some Indian or some scammer overseas, if you understood the system, you could get on our Social Security and Medicare, and we didn't have any, it looks like, any checks and balances to say, well, why are we paying all the Medicare expenses and Social Security to people that aren't even United States citizens? And we're not talking just a million here, a million there. We're talking trillions. So it's just a massive amount of money that's been involved with this corruption. And so I didn't really understand this, because people are dying now. This lady, she couldn't breathe because her USAID funding was cut off. Like, well, what state she was in? Oh, well, she was in somewhere in Southeast Asia. I'm like, what the hell? So it's like the entire world has been sucking off us like parasites, and we didn't even know it. So we are really digging into a lot of the fraud here. It really pisses me off too, because all the taxes you pay especially now tax season, and these assholes are just spending your money this way. And one of the things Trump is doing good is not trying to reform agencies, but just get rid of them. President Trump ending funding to the National Endowment for Democracy. And again, they always title their projects kind of opposite of really what they want. So probably the National Endowment for the Democracy opposes democracy, opposes free speech, is trying to subvert countries that we don't like. So this is cool that this is being defunded, not trying to reform it, but just to get rid of it. And I think they need to do the same thing for the FBI. I don't think we can reform the FBI anymore. We tried. In the 60s, 50s, and 60s, the FBI, they planted evidence, they engaged in illegal activities. And supposedly in the 70s, they had the Church Commission, and it showed all the dirty tricks the FBI was doing. And they're like, no, you got to act like an honorable agency. You can't engage in illegal behavior, FBI. And they were supposed to have all these reforms. So, okay, now they're cleaned up. Well, now they're just back to doing dirty tricks. So you're not going to reform that agency. They should just abolish the FBI. You don't need it. Other police agencies can do the work. We don't need a secret police, because it ends up just being a political police. Instead of doing things that we really care about, half the force literally was dedicated trying to track down grandma who carried a flag through the Capitol on January 6th, or trying to get so-called white supremacists that don't really exist by setting up fake groups and trying to entrap people in wacky ideas. Like, let's kidnap the governor of Michigan. It was all set up by the FBI. We don't need those. We don't need that group. They're not doing their main job. So that just needs to be disbanded. We can't reform them. We tried. They just go back to the way they were. Okay. Let's hear some more about the corruption of how the government went. I think Elon posted this.
One of my very top priorities at EPA is to be an excellent steward of your hard-earned tax dollars. There will be zero tolerance of any waste and abuse. An extremely disturbing video circulated 2 months ago featuring a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic, rushing to get billions of your tax dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. The gold bars were tax dollars, and tossing them off the Titanic meant the Biden administration knew they were wasting it. Following this revelation, during my meetings with members of Congress, I made a very important commitment to them and to the American people, which I reiterated at my confirmation hearing that if confirmed, I would immediately get a full accounting. Fortunately, my awesome team at EPA has found the gold bars.
This is so weird. It's just so weird, the massive fraud and criminal behavior that has gone through all these agencies. They have, because Elon Musk asked a question, and he said, I don't know, this is, how do these people, they've been in government all their lives, they just have a salary, they're overpaid, but say make $200,000 a year. They shouldn't make that much, but they do. But how do they end up with $40 million? And what the hell's going on here? Well, we see they're getting these gold bars, which means your tax dollars.
Shockingly, roughly $20 billion of your tax dollars were parked at an outside financial institution by the Biden EPA.
Yeah, they need to go to prison. I don't understand this, and I'm sorry, this is especially pissing me off now. I'm getting my taxes ready to go. I'm still waiting for a document that's released tomorrow, but I'm helping with Sasha. And Sasha's a very honest person. She reports all her revenue. She sells stuff on eBay. She doesn't make a lot of money. But if you make over 600, the IRS checks on you. And so they will fuck with someone like her potentially. Meanwhile, these assholes in government who make $200,000 a year doing not anything are stealing gold bars from you. And everyone's like, oh, well, okay. No, they need to go to prison. What it's just bizarre how they can be just so flagrant in violation of the law.
This scheme was the first of its kind in EPA history, and it was purposefully designed to obligate all of the money in a rush job with reduced oversight. Even further, this pot of $20 billion was awarded to just 8 entities.
Oh, 8 entities got the $20 billion. Be interesting to see who owns those entities, the LLCs. Jeez. This is like a mafia that was running all this shit.
That were then responsible for doling out your money to NGOs and others.
Oh, there we go. NGOs. Interesting. I see where this is going. I thought the EPA was about protecting the environment so people don't pollute in rivers and shit. I didn't know it was like taking gold bars and putting them in secret bank accounts and distributing among 8 of your buddies. Interesting.
At their discretion with far less transparency. Just under $7 billion was sent to one entity called the Climate United Fund.
Climate United Fund.
I'm sure you and I now have some of the same questions. How do these organizations decide how to allocate funding? How much money have they given out so far and to whom? Are there any former Biden EPA staffers who are now working at these entities?
Oh, wow. Oh, I would be shocked. Shocked. Are you saying that maybe people in the government are giving money to their friends and then they, after they leave government, they become part of these NGOs? Oh, yeah, I'm sure that doesn't happen.
Let me make one thing abundantly clear. At this point, there is zero reason to suspect any wrongdoing by the bank. Here's my position as EPA administrator. The financial agent agreement with the bank needs to be instantly terminated, and the bank must immediately return all of the gold bars that the Biden administration tossed off the Titanic.
All right, so the bank that got this, so these, it looks like what he's implying, these Biden officials, there was like 8 entities. I don't know how many people control those 8 entities. They basically looted billions of dollars of your tax money in this scheme they had, and they tried to put it in this bank. And he's saying that the bank had nothing to do with it. They were just, it's like Bank of America. I don't know what bank, but let's say Bank of America. These criminals, they set up their little places to put this money they looted. But yeah, they need to return it.
To reassume responsibility for all of these funds. We will review every penny that has gone out the door. I will be referring this matter to the Inspector General's office.
Yeah, that means criminal charges. And if they're reviewing every penny, this is really, I think all of government, I was not aware because I used to work in the corporate world and there was pretty good controls of money. I mean, hell, an expense report, some poor guy, he didn't get in trouble, but he bought like a newspaper and put it on his expense report. It was like 75 cents. This is back when they had newspapers. And he goes, oh, what's this for? You're wasting corporate money. And here's these people taking billions. And there's like no accounting.
And we'll work with the Justice Department as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's potential criminal cases coming up here.
The days of irresponsibly shoveling boatloads of cash to far-left activist groups in the name of environmental justice and climate equity are over.
See, that's how they do it. It was kind of like the old mafia. It wasn't like the Godfather. I think I brought that up. Supposedly they had an olive oil business, but that was just a front. They're really dealing in like prostitution, gambling, or whatever, in extortion. This is how they do it now. Oh, it's a climate change organization. Yeah, we care about climate change, right? And then that money goes to finance or huge, lavish lifestyles.
The American public deserves a more transparent and accountable government than what transpired these past 4 years. We take our obligations under the law as seriously as it gets. I've directed my team to find your gold bars, and they found them. Now we will get them back inside of control of government as we pursue next steps. As President Trump has vowed, we are going to usher in a new golden age of American success for the citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed.
So the money those people try to loot, it was found, and we know what bank accounts they put them in, and we're getting that money back. So that's the good news. That is good news. And they're going to turn it over to the Inspector General for, I would assume, potentially criminal behavior on part of these officials. So the amount of looting and stealing and embezzlement that has gone on in the government is really outstanding. I had no idea it was that high here. It was that higher. And the people, some of these people are so arrogant. Here's some British guy, right? Like, why are our tax monies? Here's an example. This guy was complaining because USAID, oh, it helps poor black children in Africa with flies on their face. No, it had nothing to do with that. Let's take a look what it went for. This just astounds me.
Stopped. Doesn't matter. You have a contract. So, Turquoise Mountain, which my wife Shoshana runs, has a contract, had another $1 million to go. Money just stops.
So this guy, he's a Brit, and he's complaining. A British politician, so he's a parasite in Britain. He's a politician. His wife was getting $1 million in USAID grants before Trump canceled the contract. And Rory Stewart's, I don't think it's related to Rod Stewart. She runs the Turquoise Mountain Foundations, which exposes modern art to puzzled Afghan women. So he gets millions of dollars, or his wife does, right? From you, dear viewer. You, dear viewer, sending in your taxes all the time. His wife, this Brit piece of shit, his corrupt wife gets his money so these primitive women in their burqas can look at some shitty modern art. Sometimes literally, it's just art of shit. Here you go. Look at this and be educated. She gets $1 million for that. And it's gone. It's gone now because of Trump. This is just really crazy. This is crazy, but this is what it is. All right. Tulsi got confirmed. And the only person Republican not to vote for the confirmation of Tulsi was this old turtle they're wheeling in. Mitch McConnell was the only Republican to join every Democrat in voting to confirm Tulsi Gabbard. And there he is. He's like Biden, maybe even worse. Kind of like Nancy Pelosi. We have this geriatric group in Washington, Biden, Pelosi, McConnell, that they should be in nursing homes. They should be in nursing homes They should not be in the government. In fact, literally, one politician ended up in a nursing home no one noticed for a long time. This is where we are now. And these are the people that are complaining about, oh, Elon Musk, he's hired all these young guys. What do they know? They're not even experienced like us. I am so tired of these geriatrics that are senile and infirm having to be pushed around trying to lead us. They need to go and be in a nice, in a nice home where they do puzzles or whatever. They watch Matlock, whatever they like to do. They don't need to be in government anymore. We got to clear house from these people. I don't want to hear them bitching about how young Elon's employees are. Well, good. That's why they're so successful. They're young and smart. They're not senile like these old politicians that have been around forever. So, yeah, that is where we are with that. Okay. Another news? There's just so many red pills to go over. But this was definitely a good red pill. And breaking, Donald Trump has just said, I want the Department of Education to be closed immediately. Excellent news. They don't really do anything. There's no need to have it on a federal level. We have state level of Department of Education. It runs better at a local level. Ever since we've had the Department of Education under Jimmy Carter, he founded it. Before then, we didn't have it. Schools ran a lot better. Test scores are now down. Of course, we have fewer white kids. That's the main reason. But still, the department, they're not really about educating kids. They're about teaching about pronouns, trying to convince schools they need to teach young boys that they're secretly trapped in the wrong body. They need to transition. This is where they've ended up. It just needs to be shut down. Full stop. Full stop. And some more red pills. Boy, it's hard to get all through these, but let me just show you this one. All the deportations. Yeah, Trump's not happy. Why? Because we're doing too many? No. He's saying, breaking, the Trump administration is considering using defense funding to ramp up deportations as the president is unhappy with the current pace of operations. It's been going at a breakneck speed. The border's totally closed. Like Biden, they had Kamala Harris as the borders are. They couldn't figure shit out. Trump gets in one day, it's fixed. And deportation started immediately. And Trump's like, yeah, we're not doing this fast enough. We need more deportations. So, man, this is really good to see. This is really good to see. So Trump his thing is they need to do this quicker and they need to go be faster at this here. And but then we got some bad news. There's some downside for the deportations, and I'll show you this here. Yeah. No, this is sad. I don't know what we'll do.
Freeze is the idea of a Latino freeze is
a Latino freeze.
Growing. The idea is for Latinos to stop shopping at big stores and restaurants like Target, Walmart, and McDonald's.
No! You mean we're not going to see Latinos in Walmart or McDonald's? No! What would we do? I mean, I will look at Sasha. I'm like, where are the Latinos? There's just white people in here. Where are the Latinos? We need to bring them back from Venezuela. Oh, I knew Trump was going to screw things up. Is that what they think is going to happen?
Places that recently rolled back their DEI programs. The move followed similar action by the White House and federal government.
If you don't respect our community, then, you shouldn't have our dollars.
Civil rights leader Dolores Huerta is helping lead the charge for a national boycott. Comedian John Leguizamo is also on board and is pushing for a national freeze on all shopping February 28th, calling it an economic blackout.
The call to action for the Latino freeze is targeting specific brands.
Dr. Caroline Chen is professor at San Jose State.
She doesn't look Latino.
School of Business. Dr. Chen says that Latinos make up $3.5 trillion in buying power.
Oh boy, that's just going to devastate us. Not have Latinos and Walmart and McDonald's. Oh, well, what is that date? February 28th? We'll have to go out to shopping that day. If I see any Latinos, I'll say, you go. You're not supposed to be here. So yeah, oh boy, that will be, see, so that's what's going to happen, guys. We won't have Latinos. Oh, that will suck. That will suck. All right, let's see here. It's been a good show today. Thank you so much. And before I show the final video of the show, I want to remind you that tomorrow, because it's Valentine's Day, we have a scheduling change. The show will not be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. It will be tomorrow at 11 a.m. So it'll be just like the daily show. So I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Hope you guys have a good Valentine's Day. But here's our kind of cute video for the day. There's a dog pulling the cat on the sled. That is cute. This is cute. So a lot of times people, oh, I want cat videos. I want dog videos. This has both. This has both. Goes, oh, look at me. I'll pull you along. They're such good dogs, Goldens. Golden Retrievers. So that was cute. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. And I hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you guys later.